I've been self-employed for 26 years. So, prior to the show, I understood the importance of making it happen every day, waking up every day, and thinking in what I call my alternative energy.
Mike Wolfe, from American Pickers, still runs his antique archaeology shop in 2025. Rumors of his life imprisonment have spread widely. How did we go from watching Mike Wolfe haggle over a Coca Cola cooler in someone's barn to him allegedly standing in a courtroom hearing the words, "life imprisonment"? What could he have possibly done? Is this story even true? So get comfy, grab your popcorn, maybe dim the lights if you're feeling dramatic, and stay with me. By the end of this video, you'll be saying, "Mike Wolfe? Life in prison. How did we not see this coming?" The truth about Mike Wolfe's legal status. Social media went wild earlier this year with this totally out-of-nowhere rumor that Mike Wolfe, the guy from American Pickers, had been thrown in prison for life. Life. People were acting like he was some kind of mastermind behind some underground criminal empire. It was everywhere. Twitter, Reddit threads, shady blog posts, and even random comment sections. Folks were typing with confidence, like they had seen court documents with their own eyes or something. But here's the truth, and it's almost laughable how wrong it all was. Mike Wolfe is not in prison. He has never been in prison, and he's not even facing any kind of legal trouble. Not even a little. Nothing. Nada. Mike Wolfe? Life in prison? That can't be right, can it? What could he have possibly done that would land him in prison, let alone a life sentence? Is this just a wild rumor? Or did something really serious happen behind the scenes? Did he pick up more than antiques on one of his road trips? You're not going to want to miss this one, because by the time we reach the end of the story, you'll realize there's a lot more to Mike Wolfe and his sudden brush with the law than anyone expected. So sit tight, because this mystery goes deep. Mike's just out here doing his usual thing, running his antique archaeology shop, posting sweet tributes to his friend Frank Fritz on Instagram. He did that on March 29th, 2025, by the way, and it was so heartfelt it had people tearing up, and filming new episodes of American Pickers like he always has. Seriously, if someone's doing life behind bars, how are they still uploading content and being spotted by fans while unloading vintage signs from a van outside their store in broad daylight? But the rumors didn't care about logic. They just kept flying. And let me tell you, some of the lies got so specific, it almost made you pause for a second, like, wait, could this be true? There were these made-up stories claiming he was part of an international smuggling ring dealing in stolen artifacts. When you look at Mike's actual legal history, it's laughably clean. We're talking squeaky clean. The most rebellious thing he's ever done was a speeding ticket back in the 1980s, literally when he was a teenager. And even that minor blip was mentioned in a New York Times profile back in 2011. More as a quirky fun fact than anything serious. Like, come on, who didn't speed a little when they were 17? And you know what's really frustrating? Once stuff like this starts spreading online, it's so hard to put the genie back in the bottle. The real criminal Michael Wolfe. This whole Mike Wolfe situation, it's one of those classic cases where the internet does what the internet does best. It grabs half the truth, mixes it up with the wrong name, tosses it into a blender, and hits viral. And honestly, you can't blame people too much for the confusion at first glance because, on paper, the names are identical. But let me tell you, the Mike Wolfe from American Pickers, you know, the charming antiques-obsessed guy with that lovable vintage soul, has absolutely nothing to do with the other Michael Wolfe, the one whose name has been in court records and prison documents. The two men are like night and day, but somehow the mix-up stuck, and it's been causing drama online ever since. Isn't it wild how just sharing a name with someone else can suddenly make you the subject of rumors and gossip that couldn't be further from your truth? Now, let's get into the meat of it, because you're probably wondering, who is this other Michael Wolfe? Well, brace yourself. It's heavy. The man people are confusing with the TV star is a 50-year-old guy from Gaston, Oregon. This isn't someone who was ever in front of a camera or digging through barns for rusty gold. This Michael Wolfe worked as a security guard at Cascade Steel Rolling Mills, a place where they turned scrap metal into new steel. Basically, his life was completely quiet and off the radar. Until 2019, when it suddenly wasn't. You see, that Michael Wolfe, not the one on your screen laughing with Frank and Danielle, got arrested in connection with a heartbreaking and horrifying murder case. This wasn't some petty crime or minor issue. This was something that shook people to their core. In May 2019, a young mom named Carissa Fretwell, just 25 years old, and her sweet little 3-year-old son, William, both went missing. And it didn't take long for police to start zeroing in on one man, Michael J. Wolfe. Yes, that Michael Wolfe, the Oregon one, not the American Pickers one. And that tiny little difference, the J in the middle, somehow got completely ignored by online headlines that went viral for all the wrong reasons. So what happened in that case? Well, it turned out that Wolfe and Carissa had been in a relationship years earlier, and that relationship led to William being born. But here's the catch. Wolfe didn't want to be involved. Carissa had to take him to court just to prove paternity and secure child support. And 4 days, literally 4 days, after a judge ordered Wolfe to start paying $904 a month, Carissa and William vanished. Tell me that doesn't sound suspicious? From there, things moved fast. Police arrested Wolfe just 11 days later at a donut shop in Portland. It wasn't until a few weeks later, in June, that search teams found the bodies of Carissa and little William in a remote wooded area on private land. Carissa had been shot in the head. William's cause of death couldn't even be determined, which honestly makes it all the more tragic. The whole thing was gut-wrenching. The community was horrified. And the media coverage? It was everywhere, especially in Oregon. But it made waves beyond the state, too. So, of course, when people saw headlines like Michael Wolfe sentenced to life for double murder, and they didn't read beyond the name, they thought the Mike Wolfe had done something awful. And just like that, a rumor was born. Can you imagine being a TV personality, filming season 20 of your hit show, having zero idea that your name is being dragged through online mud, all because someone else with the same name committed a crime? It's terrifying. Mike Wolfe, the real one from American Pickers, was literally out there doing what he always does, exploring old barns, sharing his love for forgotten treasures, and probably cracking a few jokes along the way. Meanwhile, the other guy, with the same name, was sitting in a courtroom facing some of the most serious charges a person can face. Eventually, in June 2022, the Oregon Michael Wolfe pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. But by then, the damage to Mike Wolfe's reputation, the innocent one, had already started spreading. And you know how social media is. People don't always fact-check. Someone sees a post saying, Mike Wolfe is in prison, and they hit share without even thinking. It's kind of like that game of telephone, where the original story gets twisted the more people pass it along. What made things worse? The headlines. So many of them just said, Michael Wolfe sentenced to life, with no pictures, no clarification, no mention of Oregon or the criminal's middle initial. And because people know the name Mike Wolfe from TV, Their brains automatically filled in the blank. And let's be real here. It's kind of messed up, right? A man who's spent his entire life working in antiques, building a beloved TV show, and genuinely just living his passion for history and collectibles, suddenly has to deal with people whispering or posting online that he's a murderer, all because of a coincidence in names. That's got to be one of the worst forms of mistaken identity out there. The victims' families made sure the real Michael J. Wolfe faced justice. At his sentencing, Carissa's sister said something so haunting, it'll stay with you. I hope every time you close your eyes, you see their faces, and it haunts you. That kind of pain, that kind of grief, it's beyond words. And yet, in the middle of all this tragedy, another man, a completely unrelated man, had to quietly endure people looking sideways at him for something he didn't do. If that doesn't show you how messy and unfair the internet can be, I don't know what does. So here's the bottom line. Mike Wolfe, the American Pickers star, is not in prison. He never was. He had nothing, absolutely nothing, to do with the criminal case in Oregon. The only thing they have in common is a name, and even that's not completely identical. The TV star is still out there doing what he loves, preserving history one rusty treasure at a time. The other Michael Wolfe is behind bars, serving a life sentence for crimes that shocked a community. Next time you see a headline, especially one that sounds just a little too juicy, take a second to read the details. Because sometimes what looks like a scandal is really just a sad case of mistaken identity. Did Mike Wolfe really get sentenced to life in prison? The rumors are flying fast, and depending on who you ask, he's either in a jail cell or back on the road picking antiques. But which one is it? Is this just another clickbait headline? Or is there actually something serious going on behind closed doors? You've got questions. We've got the full story. Don't blink, because the ending? It's the real jaw-dropper. Mike Wolfe's actual legal history. It's so underwhelming that it's almost funny that the only legal issue that actually shows up in verified public records is a speeding ticket. And get this, it wasn't even recent. We're talking way back in the 1980s, when he was a teenager probably blasting rock music in a hand-me-down car and feeling invincible like we all did back then. That tiny footnote in his life was casually mentioned in a New York Times profile from 2011. And since then, nada. Zilch. Not even a parking ticket on record. I mean, how does someone stay that squeaky clean after being famous for over a decade? It's almost suspicious how not suspicious his record is, right? Now, people online love to latch on to anything that sounds juicy. It's like the internet's favorite hobby is turning innocent folks into criminal masterminds. And you know what makes things even messier? The fact that there are 44 different people named Mike Wolfe in various public criminal databases across the U.S. So, is it really any surprise that someone with the same name probably got into trouble at some point? But here's the kicker. None of those records match the Mike Wolfe from American Pickers. Not a single one. It's just a classic case of mistaken identity mixed with a dash of online chaos and a whole lot of people jumping to conclusions without doing a bit of research. Now, when it comes to his business, Antique Archeology, that's where you'll find a few bumps in the road. But even then, it's business stuff, not criminal stuff. You know how it goes. Customer service drama, someone getting charged too much, a website glitch. It happens. In one case from July 2022, a customer filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau after being charged over $140,000 for an item online. But guess what? It wasn't some shady scam. Turns out, Two people tried to buy the same item at the exact same time, and the website processed both transactions. Antique Archeology's team handled it the way any decent business would. They explained what happened, issued a refund, and promised to fix the issue on the website. No cover-up, no drama. Just honest customer service cleanup. And honestly, when you look at how his business is doing overall, it's in great shape. Experian's business valuation report gives Wolf's business a big thumbs up, saying it rakes in close to $903,000 a year. They even marked it as low risk, with only a 1.11% chance of severe financial distress in the next year. That's basically as close to stable as you can get in the world of small business, especially one that sells antiques to passionate collectors and curious tourists. Now, that doesn't mean everyone loves antique archaeology. Some folks have left reviews on Google saying the prices are a bit too high or that there aren't enough true antiques in the store, more mass-produced knickknacks than one-of-a-kind treasures. But hey, every business gets its fair share of critiques, right? If your biggest complaint is that your shop has too many tourists and not enough old stuff, you're probably doing okay. Let's also not forget, Mike's actually spoken up about legal stuff before, but not because he's guilty of anything. Nope, he had to address a scam that used his name without his permission. Someone was out there trying to push CBD products online using his face and the American Pickers brand. Can you believe that? People really thought Mike Wolfe, of all people, was launching a CBD empire on the side. He went on social media and cleared the air, warning fans not to fall for it and calling it what it was, a total scam. He even told people to contact their banks because the scammers were overseas. So instead of being the con man, he was the guy trying to stop the con. Kind of the opposite of what all those fake jail rumors would have you believe. And let's talk about what he's actually doing right now, shall we? People spotted him in March 2025 just doing what he does best, being hands-on at his store, chatting with fans, checking out antiques, and just existing like a normal guy. That's not exactly what someone hiding from the law would be doing, right? If he were in some kind of legal mess, don't you think he'd be laying low or making headlines for all the wrong reasons? But nope, he's just out here living his life, still picking through America's backyards and barns for hidden gems. Honestly, when you take a step back and look at the whole picture, it's kind of wild how a totally innocent guy with a clean record can still be the subject of such ridiculous online chatter. After more than 10 years on TV, traveling, negotiating, and uncovering forgotten pieces of history, you'd think people would have a little more respect for the guy. But instead, the internet decides to play detective and come up with imaginary backstories that sound like something out of a bad crime drama. But here's the thing. When the facts are this simple and the rumors are this exaggerated, it just makes you shake your head and laugh. Because Mike Wolfe isn't out here living some secret double life. He's just a dude who really loves antiques, knows how to run a business, and somehow managed to dodge every major scandal that usually comes with fame. So the next time you hear someone whispering about Mike Wolfe's shady past, you might want to ask them, are you sure you've got the right Mike Wolfe? Legal challenges faced by other American pickers. Stars. As we know, Mike Wolfe has managed to stay squeaky clean when it comes to legal drama. And that's honestly saying a lot, especially when you compare it to what's been going on with some of his fellow American pickers' castmates. Like, if you've ever scrolled through some of the online gossip or Reddit threads, you might have seen folks throwing around all kinds of claims about Mike. But here's the thing. While some people are out here spinning up rumors, the real legal tea is actually with other stars from the show. And when you lay it all out, it really puts things in perspective. Let's break it down, and trust me, this stuff will have you raising your eyebrows more than once. Okay, let's start with Frank Fritz. Whew, this one's kind of a mess. Back in July 2017, Frank got himself into some pretty serious hot water. He was driving the wrong way on Interstate 80 near Walcott, Iowa. A whole bunch of people actually called 911 because his truck was literally cruising in the opposite direction. The police eventually pulled him over, and apparently, he looked completely out of it. Not drunk in the classic sense, but just off, disoriented. Now, Frank later pleaded guilty to an OWI, operating while intoxicated, which is basically Iowa's version of a DUI. But here's where it gets a little murky. He didn't get slammed with the worst punishment ever, though. He got a deferred judgment, which included 1 year of unsupervised probation, a fine of $625 plus court costs, and he had to go through a substance abuse evaluation. All things considered, it could have been worse. But then Frank started pushing back against how everything was being reported in the media. He was like, "Hey, I blew a 0.001 for alcohol. There was none in my system." Which, fair enough, he even admitted to making an illegal U-turn because he missed his exit. And you know what else is interesting? He says the cops didn't even arrest or handcuff him. They just gave him a ride home. Now that's not your typical OWI story. Before all this drama, Frank claimed he hadn't had a single ticket in 34 years. But of course, court records dug up 5 traffic violations between 2003 and 2017, including some speeding tickets and seatbelt issues. So not exactly spotless, but still nothing too wild until that whole highway incident. And after it all went down, he reportedly got help for his substance abuse problems. Hopefully, that was a turning point for him. Now, onto Danielle Colby. Her situation is less dangerous highway stunt and more IRS knocking at your door vibes. Her legal headaches started around late 2013. And guess what the issue was? Taxes. Yep. Those annoying little things we all wish we could ignore but absolutely can't. In November 2013, she got hit with a lien for almost $6,000 because she hadn't paid sales taxes from August of that year. And it didn't stop there. Just 2 months later, in January 2014, boom, another lien, this time for nearly the same amount. By February, the total had ballooned to almost $12,000. Then in June, yet another lien for over $5,900. It was like a never-ending snowball of tax trouble. According to the Cook County, Iowa Treasurer's Office, Danielle hadn't even filed her tax returns during this time, so the authorities had to estimate how much she owed. That's never a good sign. What's wild is that all of this reportedly stemmed from not properly reporting her income from her business and TV appearances. It's the kind of thing that can sneak up on you if you're not careful, especially if you're juggling creative work and business responsibilities. And the cherry on top? She still hasn't resolved those tax issues. Like, they're still hanging over her like a dark cloud. Can you imagine the stress? And then we've got Robbie Wolf, Mike's own brother, who, believe it or not, has the most serious charge of all. Way back in April 1993, when Robbie was just 27, he got arrested at a sports bar in the middle of the night. And no, this wasn't a simple bar fight. The charges? Assault causing injury, criminal mischief, and interfering with official acts. It gets worse. Court papers say he punched a police officer 3 times in the face during the arrest. Like, what? The officer had head and mouth injuries, and to make things even more expensive, Robbie broke the officer's glasses, which were worth $250. At first, Robbie pleaded not guilty to everything, but eventually he took a plea deal. He admitted to hitting the officer and breaking the glasses, and he acknowledged that his actions interfered with the officer doing his job. The court originally sentenced him to 150 days in jail, 120 days for the assault and criminal mischief, and 30 for interfering. But here's the twist. The judge suspended his jail time. Instead, Robbie got 1 year of probation, court fines, and was ordered to get treatment. And that was that. So when you line up all these incidents, Frank's dangerous highway episode, Danielle's messy tax situation, and Robbie literally punching a cop, you start to see a really interesting pattern. It's not Mike Wolfe who's got the skeletons in his closet. Quite the opposite. While people are out there whispering and speculating and trying to paint him with the same brush, Mike's record is basically spotless. No DUIs, no tax liens, no assault charges. Just a guy who loves digging through rusty barns and finding forgotten treasures. Isn't it funny how people will believe wild rumors with no proof, but then totally overlook the documented stuff other people have actually done? It's almost like the quieter you are, the more people assume you're hiding something, when really, you're just minding your business. And Mike, he's clearly been doing just that, minding his business and staying out of trouble. Meanwhile, the drama has been swirling all around him, but never directly touching him. That contrast really makes you think, doesn't it? What happens when your whole life is turned upside down by something that never even happened? Wolf was rising fast, talented, hardworking, and loved by fans. But then, out of nowhere, came a legal claim so shocking it made headlines overnight. The catch? It wasn't even true. So here's the question. How does someone bounce back from that? Can you ever really fix a reputation once it's been dragged through the mud, even when you did nothing wrong? The internet never forgets, and neither does the industry. But maybe Wolf had more strength than anyone gave him credit for. Stay with us until the very end, because what happened next might just restore your faith in second chances, or prove that sometimes false claims do more damage than we ever imagined. Impact of false legal claims on Wolf's career. It's honestly kind of shocking how fast a person's name can get dragged through the mud these days, even when the whole thing is based on a lie. That's exactly what's been happening to Mike Wolfe lately. You know Mike, right? The guy from American Pickers, the one who's always cruising around back roads, finding old gems in barns and garages that most people would just drive past. Yeah, that Mike Wolfe. Well, believe it or not, there's been this ridiculous rumor flying around that he's been in prison. Can you imagine? Mike Wolfe? Behind bars? It's totally false, but that hasn't stopped it from spreading like wildfire online. And the worst part? Even though he's still out there, filming the show and running his shops, this stupid hoax has really done a number on his reputation. Now let's be real. When people start whispering about something like imprisonment, even if it's baseless, it gets into people's heads. And before you know it, folks start questioning everything. Is he still trustworthy? Is his business legit? Should I still watch his show? Should I even bother visiting his stores? It's frustrating because Mike has been working for years, building something really cool with Antique Archeology. His stores in Iowa and Tennessee, they're not just tourist traps. They're actual businesses pulling in around $903,000 a year. That's no small chunk of change. But despite the numbers, the vibe has shifted. People are walking into those stores expecting magic, probably hoping to feel like they've stepped into a live episode of the show. But instead, they're coming out disappointed. Some even say there's barely anything for sale and that what is available is way overpriced. One reviewer didn't hold back at all, calling it a total waste of time. Imagine being a longtime fan of the show, finally getting the chance to visit one of Mike's stores and leaving totally let down. That's got to sting, for the customer and for Mike. You put your heart into something, and then rumors start peeling that all away. Doesn't it make you wonder how someone keeps going when their reputation is getting chipped at from all sides? And then there's the show itself. American Pickers used to be one of those feel-good programs you could throw on and just chill. It had that mix of nostalgia, adventure, and those cool little history lessons tucked in between the finds. But ever since the drama with Fritz, and now these imprisonment lies, it's like the show can't catch a break. The numbers tell the story. The season premiere on October 9th, 2024, only brought in 565,000 viewers. By October 30th, it had dropped to 442,000. And even though the January 15th, 2025 finale bumped things back up to 708,000, it still doesn't hold a candle to the old days when episodes regularly crossed the million-viewer mark. That's a big drop. Like, remember when Mike and Frank were the dream team? Fans loved that chemistry. But now, people are out here commenting things like, "Cancel this show, it's a husk of what it was." And let's be honest, that one kinda hits hard. But here's the thing about Mike. He's not just hiding out or pretending like everything's perfect. He's actually showing up. He posted a really emotional tribute to Frank on Instagram not long ago, on March 29th, 2025. And that's not something he had to do. It came from the heart. You could tell. He's still unloading items from his van, still showing up at his shop, still keeping his hands in the work. Like, have you ever just watched someone keep going even when the world seems to be throwing shade their way? That's Mike right now. He's not jumping into some big PR war or ranting online. Nope. He's just out there doing what he's always done. Treasure hunting, storytelling, connecting with communities. Almost like he's trying to remind people, hey, this is who I really am. Don't believe the noise. And get this, they're already filming new episodes again. As of February 2025, cameras started rolling, and the show still has 3 more seasons left in its contract. Isn't that something? Even with the ratings drop and all the backlash, they're still pushing forward. Maybe that's because there's still something valuable in what Mike's doing. Maybe, deep down, people want to see him bounce back. Because honestly, who hasn't faced unfair rumors at some point? Who hasn't had to keep going while people whispered about stuff that wasn't even true? So yeah, Mike Wolfe's definitely taken a few hits lately, but the guy's not going down without a fight. Not the loud, flashy kind of fight, more like a quiet, steady determination to protect the legacy he's spent decades building. And if you ask me, that kind of resilience, that's pretty rare these days. So maybe next time someone brings up that ridiculous prison rumor, just hit 'em with the truth. Mike Wolfe's not behind bars. He's behind the counter, behind the camera, and behind a mission to keep American history alive, one dusty barn at a time. Thank you for watching. We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.